And then I want to tell you the story of the cobbler. Some places he has a different name, or the story has a few different details, but I'm just going to tell the story so that you'll get the biblical message behind it. The cobbler, in a very olden time, when cobblers made shoes for people, and when shoes were very difficult to get, and people were poor, and did not have all the luxuries that we have today. They depended on wood to be warm. They depended on a good season to have food stored up. They did not have everything that even we've had in this 2020 pandemic. But the cobbler had thought so much about Jesus. And he just felt like that this Christmas, he was going to have Jesus stop by. That he was going to have Jesus as his Christmas guest. Oh, his heart it just fluttered as he thought about that. And so as he finished his day on Christmas Eve, he finished early enough to be able to sweep the floor and put down some new sand, and he tidied up all the leather and all the cuttings and the shoes that were left on display, and he took the time to make some fresh bread, and he had saved some meat just especially for this time. And as he prepared, went out and got some milk, had milk ready to serve, and he was ready. He had tea, milk, he had meat, he had bread, he had the shop ready, and as he went to sleep, he was just thrilled that Jesus was going to visit him the next day. He just felt in his heart that Jesus was going to be his guest. So the next day, he is so anticipating. I mean, he gets out of bed, he makes his bed with the most excitement, and easiest to make a bed he'd ever made, because he's just, oh, the Lord is going to be my guest today. And kind of mid-morning, he looked out and he saw a street sweeper out there with his broom sweeping, and he noticed that he didn't have any head covering. And you could tell the old gentleman was cold, and he was trying to work, but you could tell he was cold. And the cobbler went to the door and he said, "Come into my shop. Could I offer you a warm hat? I have an extra hat. Let me give you a warm hat. And I make good leather gloves. Here, let me give you some good leather gloves. And let's have a glass of warm tea today." And so they had their tea, and he gave him what he needed, and he went on his way. Well, it wasn't too long till a young girl, 10, 11, he noticed outside his door had kind of been pacing back and forth, and she was crying. And so he went to the door and he said, "Hon, can you come in? What's wrong?" And she said, "Well, I've lost somehow in going up and down the streets. I've lost my mother, and I don't know where she is, and I'm hungry, and I'm tired." And he took the little girl to the table and served her some of the bread and some of the meat and gave her some milk. And it wasn't too long till the little girl screamed with joy, "That's my mom, that's my mom." And so out the door she went, and the mother came and thanked him for what he had done. And he was thinking, wow, it's late in the afternoon now, and Jesus still hasn't come. Well, as it was almost dark, an older woman came down the street, and she was kind of hobbling along, and he noticed it was because her shoes were worn and almost falling apart, and she was trying to scuffle along in these shoes. And he went to the door and he said, "Please come in, please. I may have a pair of shoes that would just fit you and would solve your problem and make your life better." And she came in, and he served her bread and meat and tea, and he fitted her for a pair of shoes and on her way. It was almost dark. And the cobbler said, "Jesus, I just really don't understand. I really thought you were going to be my guest today. But you know, I haven't had anything but people in need today. But I really thought you were going to be my guest. And the Lord said, what you have done unto the least of these, you have done it unto me. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. And he quoted that scripture to the cobbler. The cobbler had done what needed to be done for his fellow man. And Jesus counted it to be the same as if Jesus himself had been the guest and received everything.